Brian Bennett has a twin, and some say his brother is even better than him. I've kept my eye on this for a while because a few years ago, I was told by someone to watch out for the Bennett twins. This was like an old school person who had worked across Zimbabwe and South Africa, and wasn't someone to hype up young players unnecessarily. So when I started seeing Brian Bennett play franchise cricket, I assumed his brother was next. But I've been commentating with former Zimbabwean bowler Ed Rainsford this week, and so I asked him about the other Bennett, David. The last game I could find of him was a 77 not out in under-19s against the West Indies. But that was back in 2022. So I asked Ed why David Bennett has not played for Zimbabwe yet. And he told me it's because he quit to be a tobacco farmer. Talent has never been an issue for Zimbabwe. You could look around the world right now and find so many players with other countries or in other professional setups who are Zimbabwean. The issue has always been with keeping them in the team. And they managed to keep one Bennett, and Brian made 100 in his first test in England while still only 21. It's clear Zimbabwe still have something to give cricket. Their song is not over.
As a cricket journalist, I would travel sometimes up to 200 days a year. I loved watching cricket games. I loved going to new countries. It was an absolute dream. But there was one thing I hated more than anything else about it, and it was this little pin. The thing that I need to change my SIM card in every new country. The absolute worst thing about this pin and SIM cards is when I was traveling to the West Indies, of having to arrive in every new island or country and having to work out if I could still find this pin and then line up and get my SIM card in every single airport. Well, now we have the answer thanks to Saily. They can make it so you never have to worry about this nonsense ever again. They use an eSIM app that once you install once, it is easy, simple, and cheap. Oh, and it works in more than 160 countries. And you can throw these pins away forever because now you just need to download the Saily app before your trip. And if you do it with our code, Good Areas, you get an exclusive 15% discount on Saily eSIM data plans. So before your next holiday or work trip or any time you have to travel to another country, download the Saily app and use the code Good Areas, or one word, at checkout, and you can travel like a pro with Saily.
There was a moment in England's innings where Blessing Muzarabani was just fired up. He just dismissed Harry Brook after a decent spell, but the anger was disappointment because he is their main star, and on day one, he just hadn't done his job. He hadn't taken new ball wickets or kept the pressure on enough. He was their most dangerous bowlers, but he couldn't break through, and so England just had their way. And by the time he did, it was too late, and that anger sort of exploded out of him. Muzarabani has been their most important cricketer for generations. A 6'8" fast bowler with a good ability to move the ball in both directions. Many of their other current stars were late bloomers, but he really stood out, quite literally, from an early age. But after Zimbabwe failed to make the 2019 World Cup, he decided to take a different career and play as a coal pack with Northants. There he might have stayed if it wasn't for Brexit changing all the regulations. But even after that, he almost was given a Major League Cricket contract with the hopes of qualifying eventually for the USA team. I mean, everyone wanted Muzarabani, and that meant that his Zimbabwe career was almost over. And that's a very common thing to happen for Zimbabwean cricketers. Craig Irvine was once offered a winter contract to play for Zimbabwe, and he was like, what's the point? So he went off to play club cricket in Western Australia. And this is a guy who should have been a lifer for this team, as he comes from Zimbabwean cricket royalty, starting in 2010 and is now their test captain. The sad thing is, it's just never that simple for Zimbabwe. There's always seems to be moments when players are just not around. Like, for instance, Sean Williams has played international cricket for an awful long time. How long? Well, he is now the 5th longest ODI career in the history of the game. Only 3 years and 301 matches fewer than Sachin Tendulkar. But over the last few years, he's suddenly unlocked a new level, and he's been making runs everywhere. This test knock was really a continuation of his awesome form. And it wasn't all fun for him. He also took a huge blow to the arm from Josh Tongue, and it looked like that might end his day. But of course it didn't. He was always going to play on. And he wasn't the only one hurt. Richard Engarava has been an incredible new ball bowler for this national team for quite a while now. And in this test, I think you'd have to say he let them down. But it was worse because when he went to field a ball, he managed to do his back as well. But even though he could barely walk, he still came out on the field to try and give the team something. And I don't think there's anyone who sort of lives up to that spirit more than Ben Curran. He might be the fourth best cricketer in his own family, which still makes him pretty good in world terms. But none of that is for a lack of trying. He is a thorough professional, and you can see it in every moment he's on the field. On day one, he was closing off his front foot a little bit. So he came back on the third day and he just stopped doing that. That's a pro's pro. He's from a family of cricket, and he was never going to be the star in his own household or for Zimbabwe, but he's doing all the things he has to. It's Sikandar Raza who is the star of this team. A man who could have been flying fighter jets in Pakistan is instead the talisman of this Zimbabwean lineup. And he's only this good because of pure will. He's not the most talented player, naturally. He is someone who spent his entire life trying to get to this level. In the last few years, he's just been absolutely magnificent. Winning ICC awards, getting IPL contracts, and also just being a constant highlight on different reels that you see online. He's decided that he won't be available for every test, in part because this is the period in his life that he can finally cash in on all that hard work. But when Zimbabwe needed him, he came back. And he didn't just come back in a token gesture, he ended up bowling almost all of their overs on day one, which he would not have expected in England. Because even their stars have to be role players. They had a technical 12th man, but really they had thousands of them. Because this Zimbabwe crowd is one of the most special in cricket. And I've been saying that for a long time. As Ed Rainsford said, sport is magical in Zimbabwe. It's almost communal. By day 3, at times this felt like a Zimbabwean home game. There were pockets of fans everywhere, and maybe pockets is the wrong word. It felt like there were entire stands of Zimbabwean fans. You could see their red shirts and their eagles, and they sang and they cheered and they stood for their team. It was clear that this meant something a lot more than just a test. They didn't come to this ground expecting a win. They came because they just wanted to be a part of it, to show support. Like to the poor Victor Nyochi, who just couldn't land the ball in the right place in that first innings. Or to their keeper Tsiga, who just kept getting hit, trying to reach all these random wide deliveries from his bowlers. Or the promising Wesley Madavira, who was just trying to find his own way. They cheered through Sikandar Raza's weird long spell, for every boundary, and even for Miss Universe Zimbabwe who turned up. They were here for their country, almost every single one of them in their national colours supporting their team. And when the game finished, their players supported them, many jumping over the fence to get amongst family and friends. This is not players on one side and fans on the other. It was Zimbabwe united. This was more than a test for many of them. It was a chance to celebrate their nation. But obviously through that, they got some moments. Maybe none more than Bennett's 100. A 21-year-old middle order player who did the most Zimbabwean thing ever and asked for the tough job of opening the batting in England. He slashed and drove and swept and hooked his way to a better than a run of ball 100, breaking his country's record in the process. It was exhilarating as a neutral. But I think a moment like this is something a lot more to the Zimbabweans. Ed Rainsford couldn't even talk on commentary when that 100 happened. In 1983, they beat Australia, and by 2003, they were co-hosting the World Cup. The following 20 years, though, have just been tough, and this test was a loss on the scoreboard. But to use the parlance of the Bazbolian lot, it was a moral win. They were here, they sang songs, and they made runs. They still have something to give to cricket. Their song is not over.
Brian Lara used pot plants to work on his placement. John Wright glued his glove to his bat. Sachin Tendulkar dug up practice pitches. Tatenda Taibu cut the top off his bat. Claire Taylor used a hockey grip. Steve Smith was from tennis. Dean Jones would call phantom runs. And Victor Trumper turned the nets into a war zone to survive. The best batters in the world do whatever they have to make runs. We have told their stories in our new book, The Art of Batting.